Imagine sitting at this massive, heavy wooden desk, right? It's the late 1700s, and you are staring at a single piece of parchment that literally promises to teach you how to synthesize a living vegetable out of thin air.
Which is just, I mean, it's an incredible mental image.
It really is. And you aren't just casually reading a book. You are actively cross-referencing centuries of these highly guarded, cryptic texts to basically reverse engineer the fundamental laws of nature. And today, we're taking a deep dive into a document that serves as a direct portal to that exact scenario.
Yeah, we're looking at a 1982 reproduction. It's published by RAMS, which is the Restorers of Alchemical Manuscript Society. They're this organization dedicated to preserving esoteric texts.
Right, and the title on the cover, which is highly ornate, by the way, is simply 18 Short Tracts of Alchemy.
And, you know, the cover art alone really communicates the density of what's inside. You have all these classical figures, swords, shields, blazing fire, all situated right under a chaotic laboratory setting.
It's intense.
It is. It visually establishes that the contents are bridging the mythological with the highly practical. But looking at the table of contents presents an immediate challenge for the reader, because a standard index is, you know, a linear map from ignorance to understanding.
Right, chapter 1, chapter 2.
Exactly. But this collection completely defies that structure.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because our mission for today's deep dive is to decode that exact structure. We aren't going to just, read down this table of contents like a grocery list.
No, that wouldn't make any sense.
Right. We want to uncover the hidden connections between these 18 individual tracks. Why were specific texts from completely different eras bundled together like this? Looking at a table of contents from an esoteric book, like this is kind of like looking at a playlist, The magic is really in how the tracks flow together.
Oh, I like that analogy, the playlist.
Yeah.
And understanding those connections really requires looking at the architect of the collection. This didn't just fall out of the sky.
Someone curated it.
Exactly. And the introductory text gives us the key to the entire puzzle right away. The predominance of these tracks was obtained from the personal library of a Dr. Sigismund Backstrom. He's the primary connective tissue here.
So he's the guy who made the playlist.
He is. These 18 tracks were deliberately curated by him, and the evidence of his specific methodology is actually preserved right on the pages. Because the RAMS reproduction kept Backstrom's original marginalia intact.
Wait, his marginalia, like his personal handwritten notes in the margins?
Yep, completely intact.
Wow. See, for me, seeing those notes fundamentally shifts how we interact with the document. It's like buying a used textbook at a college bookstore, but you specifically hunt for the one where the smartest kid in the class has already highlighted the important parts and left all their notes in the margins.
That is exactly what it's like.
But I mean, does seeing those personal notes change how we should read the tracks? Because we're essentially looking at the source material through Backstrom's personal filter, right? Does that risk biasing our understanding?
Well, what's fascinating here is that in a traditional academic sense, yeah, you might worry about bias. But in the context of esoteric manuscripts, that filter is the entire point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the marginalia proves that alchemy, at least for Backstrom, was a living, applied practice. You aren't just reading theory. You're seeing a scholar actively attempting to synthesize all these disparate authors and eras into one cohesive, functional worldview.
So the margins are where the real action is.
Right. The margin notes are where the actual work is happening. He is cross-referencing symbols and tracking chemical analogies in real time on the page. And we also know he translated at least some of these tracks himself.
Which is wild, because translating 15th century alchemical texts isn't like translating a straightforward novel from French to English. The language itself is a literal cipher.
Precisely. Which is why his personal annotations are so invaluable. He was navigating these incredibly dense allegories. He's trying to figure out if a term like, say, green lion meant a specific acid in one text and then meant something completely different in another text.
It's like trying to translate a secret code where the key keeps changing.
Exactly. And this exhaustive piecemeal
(1 through 23). But then the very next tract, Light Out of Chaos, it resets completely. It starts back at page 1 and goes to page 30. Then the next tract is just pages 1 to 2.
Right, it's so chaotic at first glance. But that non-sequential pagination is a physical reminder that this is not a monolithic textbook. It's a snapshot of a working practitioner's personal study files.
They were separate files.
Exactly. These were entirely separate documents collected over decades, individually translated, heavily annotated, and then finally physically bound together. The binding itself is a physical manifestation of Backstrom making connections between isolated tracks.
So if the binding is the manifestation of his synthesis, we really need to look at how he chose to start this collection. I mean, track 1 on the playlist.
Right, you always have to start at the beginning.
Yeah, and when Backstrom places Glory of Light next to Light Extracted from Chaos, which is also called Light Out of Chaos, and then follows it up with The First Matter, he is firmly setting a foundation. He's bypassing standard terrestrial chemistry and going straight for, like, cosmic genesis.
Oh, absolutely. Those 3 tracks operate as the theoretical physics of Backstrom's collection.
Theoretical physics.
Yeah, because before an alchemist attempts to manipulate matter in a crucible, they have to understand the mechanics of where that matter even came from. In this worldview, chaos represents the unformed universe. And extracting light from that chaos isn't just a metaphor for, spiritual enlightenment.
It's literal.
It represents the literal cosmic separation of order from the void. That initial spark generates the first matter, which is the foundational substance of all reality.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because if we're talking about extracting light from the void of chaos to create the first matter, this means alchemy is way less about boiling potions in a cauldron and more about essentially trying to reverse engineer the Big Bang in a laboratory setting.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, understanding the first matter is the absolute prerequisite for everything else in the book.
So you have to know how the universe was made first.
Exactly. If you can understand the mechanics of how light was drawn out of the void, you possess the operational blueprint to manipulate the regular matter sitting right there on your workbench. You have to know the architecture of the universe before you can start rearranging its furniture.
I love that, rearranging the universe's furniture. But okay, once that massive cosmological foundation is established, the collection pivots pretty dramatically.
It does. It gets very practical.
Yeah. Backstrom moves away from theoretical physics and starts listing the historical heavyweights of the practice alongside these incredibly specific tools. He places the mythological figure of Merlin right alongside historically documented esotericists.
Right, people like Ramon Lull and Trevisan.
Exactly. We get Ramon Lull's testament, a letter to Dr. J.J. Becker, and Trevisan actually contributes 2 distinct tracks here. There's Verbum Demissum and the Parable of the Fountain.
What Backstrom is doing here is connecting the practitioners to the process. He is deliberately blurring the line between myth and science to find a common ground. He's weaving these voices together to bridge esoteric parables with contemporary applied methodology.
And mixed right in with these legendary names are the tracks outlining the active ingredients, right? The tools for the job. We see Secret Fire of the Philosophers, followed by Suffolk Mercury for Philosopher's Stone.
And these are directly connected. The overarching goal is explicitly named in another track as the great work of the Lapis Philosophorum, the Philosopher's Stone.
Right.
But the connections Backstrom makes show us that the great work is totally impossible without mastering the intermediate steps. You cannot achieve the great work without the Secret Fire and the Suffolk Mercury. They are the absolute active ingredients.
Okay, I have to say, Suffolk Mercury sounds like a very exclusive, high-end skincare brand.
It really does sound like something you'd buy at a luxury department store.
Right, like apply the Suffolk Mercury serum at night for a youthful glow. But jokes aside, I want to push back.
And secretive?
So they weren't just sharing recipes like a cookbook.
Not at all. Connecting multiple tracks was a way of cross-checking the recipes. Reading Lull's testament alongside Trevisan's Parable of the Fountain was Backstrom's method of triangulating the truth.
Triangulating it how?
So if one author uses a metaphor of a king drowning in a fountain, and another describes a red lion consuming a green snake, Backstrom is trying to deduce if they are describing the exact same chemical process. He's translating metaphor into actual practice.
Yeah.
That's why he includes tracks titled Practice of the Philosophers and Opus Philosophorum.
He's crowdsourcing the great work across centuries.
Yes, that's exactly what he's doing.
Okay, so the structure really makes perfect sense up to this point. We have the theoretical cosmology, which is extracting light from chaos. We have the historical cipher, using Lull and Trevisan to decode it. And we have the required tools, the secret fire in Sophic Mercury. It is a clean, logical progression.
It remains a clean progression right up until Backstrom throws several massive curveballs into the collection.
The outliers.
Yes, the outliers that completely expand the definition of alchemy.
Because just when you think you've got the pattern figured out, you look at the table of contents and you see Zoroaster's Cave, which explicitly has the subtitle Magical Gold. And then shortly after that, there's a tract titled 100 Aphorisms on Magic.
And that's magic spelled with a K at the end, which denotes a system of esoteric practice rather than, stage illusions.
Right, not pulling a rabbit out of a hat. And then, sandwiched near these, is an incredibly specific library reference. It's simply titled Sloan M's 631 F183.
Which is such a shift in tone.
Totally. And finally, the absolute strangest title in the entire collection, the one we mentioned at the start, To Make the Likeness of a Vegetable. And it is exactly 1 page long.
It's so jarring. But how do these fit with the Philosopher's Stone? Well, analyzing these connections completely recontextualizes Backstrom's worldview.
How so?
By linking magical gold and 100 aphorisms on magic directly to the chemical treatises, he's showing that he views alchemy and magic as deeply intertwined disciplines. One cannot be separated from the other. The laboratory chemistry is inert without the magical framework.
And then the Sloan M's track to grounds it all in institutional archiving, right?
Exactly. Sloan M's 631 refers directly to a manuscript in the British Museum. The F183 is Folio 183. He's citing a specific academic catalog to back up this mystical pursuit.
So what does this all mean? Especially regarding that 1-page vegetable tract, I am completely zeroed in on this. Why, amidst all these grand texts about cosmic chaos and magical gold and British Museum archives, would a master alchemist dedicate a single page to making a fake vegetable? Is it just some ancient magical chia pet?
An ancient chia pet. No, this raises an important question about the ultimate goal of the work. It connects all the way back to the very beginning of the collection, back to the first matter.
Wait, the vegetable connects to the creation of the universe?
It does. Because the great work wasn't just about obtaining wealth or making literal gold. If an alchemist can artificially recreate the likeness of a growing plant, if they can synthesize biological form, they have successfully harnessed the fundamental life-giving forces of nature itself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's the ultimate proof of concept. If you can make a vegetable in a flask, you have proven you understand the mechanics of creation that turn inert matter into living organisms. Transmuting lead into gold is almost a trivial byproduct at that point.
The true zenith of the great work is the mastery of organic life.
Exactly.
That is incredible. The 1-page vegetable tract isn't a joke. It's the physical manifestation of the cosmic theory proven on a microscopic scale.
Right.
So to wrap this up, when you look at this 1982 reproduction, what initially looks like a random assortment of 18 disparate titles is actually a masterfully connected web. We trace the journey from the theoretical extraction of light from chaos through the secret coded tools of Lull and Trevisan, how they are connected and applied by the person reading them.
It's all about the synthesis. And that actually leaves us with a compelling final thought to mull over.
Ah.
Yeah. If Dr. Backstrom's marginalia in his personal library of tracts served as his map to understanding the universe, what does your own marginalia say about you? When people look back at the articles you bookmarked, the notes you've jotted down, the tabs you have open, and the links you've saved across different platforms, what kind of great work will they think you were trying to achieve?